Evan, good evening from New Hampshire, where voters are preparing, as you've said, to head for the polls in the first primary of the US election. Now, over the past weeks, momentum has been gathering for Bernie Sanders, whose soaring poll lead, at least, over Hillary Clinton, brought out a sharp rebuke from Bill Clinton over the past weekend. The Vermont senator believes in a kind of new politics. Where have you heard that before? He's America's answer, I suppose, to Jeremy Corbyn. He's attracting young female voters, particularly in their droves. Tonight, we ask if that momentum is particular to this state, notorious for its late deciders, or if the revolution on the left could be a game changer, speaking to a wider dissatisfaction with American politics. We start tonight in Sanders' home state, neighbouring Vermont.
Okay, I like that. I'm so excited.
There are different ways of expressing your commitment to a candidate. The T-shirt, the bumper sticker, and then there's this, a permanent tattoo of his head on your skin.
Yeah, and then he was there announcing his tattoo.
Here in Bernie Sanders' home state of Vermont, they're offering them free to any supporter who wants one.
All right, who's next?
Sure enough, his fans, let's call them Sandinistas, are queuing up. It's Jenny's turn. She's a psychology student at the nearby University of Vermont.
I've never voted in a presidential election before. I think that even if he doesn't get the nomination, I think that this is just the beginning of something very, very large.
And they're nearly all young women. Bernie's got my back, Danica tells me. She peels off the plaster to show me. You don't worry that a tattoo is for life, not for Christmas?
No, I think actually, to me, because he is such a brave person and he's so, like, his message and what he's doing is so iconic to me that's timeless.
Tyree, the boss, has done more than 70 this past week.
Have you had any really bizarre requests?
Couple butts, a middle finger, and just recently someone wanted the glasses rose-colored.
It's a little bit darker than our lightest roast, and it's delicious.
It's not just tattoos, it's coffee too. The Capitol Grounds Cafe is marketing a new flavour they call Bernie's Beans. They give away 20% of what they make to Sanders veterans.
People are really excited about it. They come in and buy bags and bags every single day.
What's striking is the absence of a party machine behind all this. It's grassroots activism at its most, well, radical. Small businesses who hear Sanders looking out for them and want to offer something back. Sanders is the man with the momentum right now. His brand of socialism, anti-Wall Street, pro-income equality and cannabis legalisation appeals to the young and ideological, the same kind of crowd that voted for Jeremy Corbyn back in September. With his shock of dishevelled hair and specs, he is embraced, or perhaps cultivated, as the grumpy Jewish Brooklyn boy straight out of Seinfeld.
It's a revolution, Jane. Millions of people. If we have a good...
Indeed, its creator, Larry David, frequently impersonates him.
Mr. Bernie Sanders, oh, I'm your biggest fan. And I'm telling you, I'm feeling the burn.
The skit on the satirical Saturday Night Live show plays the perception his voter base is largely Caucasian. The population of New Hampshire, where he has a massive lead, is overwhelmingly white.
No, you specifically coughed into your head. I saw it.
No, I didn't. Come on, Mrs.
And that's something Hillary Clinton wants to play to her advantage. This is her last town hall appearance before New Hampshire voters go to the polls. A stage-managed affair that's meant to seem folksy. See her minders? For half an hour ahead of the event, they've been trying to fill the camera shot behind her with young Asian and black faces, a subliminal reminder of how much wider her appeal base is.
Why do you want to be the president?
I'm still trying to work out whether the questions are all planted when suddenly she chooses me.
Thank you very much, Secretary Clinton. Can you just explain for us how you understand the momentum towards Bernie at the moment?
Well, you know, let me start by saying I am really happy to see so many young people involved in the political process. I really am. I know that Senator Sanders has a very big base of young voters, and they're not supporting me. And I just want any of you and others that you know to know that I'm supporting you.
Her husband, the former president, wasn't quite so measured, taking aim at Sanders and at his supporters, and his Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, then chastised young women for not choosing Hillary.
Just remember, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other.
These attacks tell you they are spooked by Sanders, and although no one will say the words out loud, they worry he may be having the same effect on the young and disaffected that Obama did in 2008.
In many states, if you declare as an independent voter, then you can't then vote for a Republican or a Democrat in the primary contest. But in New Hampshire, that's not the case. As an independent, you can go along on the day and vote for whichever candidate takes your fancy. In other words, this particular contest has that whole new block of the unknown.
And it's estimated that as many as 40% could be independents here. As with Obama, it's all about whether Sanders can mobilise the vote.
When you talk to Bernie supporters here in Vermont, they say it's not a fad, a passing phase. They like what he's done to the state here as Senator Sanders, and they feel that whether or not he wins the nomination, the movement behind it is the thing they want to stay.
And don't forget, New Hampshire is Sanders' backyard, a large block of that progressive white vote and people who know his track record.
What do you guys think?
But from here, the race gets faster and much more racially diverse. Whether the people of South Carolina will be so ready to feel the burn, well, that's where things start to get interesting.
Well, before we get to South Carolina, of course, there's the voting right here. And to help us unpick some of the patterns that are going on, Naomi Kuntz, who's a Democratic strategist and calls herself a feminist for Sanders, and Joe Klein, you'll recognise, who has followed the Clintons closely and writes for Time magazine, amongst other things. Very nice to have you both. And Naomi, starting with you, you heard Madeleine Albright's line this weekend where she said there is a special circle of hell reserved for, women who don't work to help women. She was talking to those Sanders supporters who were female.
I respect Madeleine Albright, and she's a crusader for women all around the world. I actually enjoy that quote when it's used in different ways. I just don't think that was the right setting for it, and I've heard other Hillary supporters acknowledge that as well. Listen, I mean, to dismiss the millennial woman is not the way to engage them. The problem with the millennial feminists is that they don't feel included in the process. They feel that the institution of the Democratic Party has been running candidates that are out of touch with their concerns and their needs, and they weren't there to fight for them in those key moments because they were more concerned with winning. They were more concerned with working with the other side. Well, working with the other side is very important, but you still have to have a backbone. And so from my perspective as a Bernie supporter, I support Bernie because he's attacking the root cause of income inequality, the root cause of gender inequality, and other forms of inequality. And that's Wall Street. Wall Street's campaigning against equal pay.
And Joe, when you see the big guns coming out, Clinton, Albright, Hillary Clinton doesn't need those guns.
A big gun. By the way, I thought what she said is outrageous. She wouldn't say that about Marine Le Pen, would she? I mean, she was just saying it about Bernie and about Hillary. It's, that kind of stuff is really stupid. Feminism has been the most successful political movement of my lifetime. We're going to see a woman president before very, very long. Women are markedly superior to men, I can tell you that. And, that's so 25 years ago, what she said.
Why are the women, then, these young women? I know the tattoo parlour's not representative, but it was very interesting that there were a lot of young women coming in and they're all talking about Bernie Sanders, not Hillary Clinton, when it should be, in commas, her moment.
I think that Hillary Clinton, millennials are very familiar with her. She's been a part of their lives since they were born, or for the most part. I think that millennial women are looking for a next generation of women to rise up, and it would be important for the Democratic Party to take note. We do need a next generation. We need a bench of women, not just one woman or three women. I agree with you on some points that women are superior, but I think that we have a lot of work to do. Similar to what LGBT issues have. They've had a very successful campaign. The problem is that you have women who've been fighting for 20 years who aren't ready to move over.
OK. Joe, I want to talk about the actual campaign, because we're hearing now from Politico that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton are not happy with the way it's been going. There's going to be staff changes, strategy changes. Do you think we're going to see a whole
that's
new...
never happened before in a Clinton. Right. I mean, every single campaign. I mean, what they're talking about is some dissatisfaction with their pollster. They fired their pollster in the last election. I've seen them fire They go through pollsters the way people go through underwear. I mean, it is, this is a pretty classic Clinton campaign. The problem, her big problem is this, that she was when she was in her youth. She was the moral equivalent of a Bernie Sanders supporter. She supported George McGovern. She worked for George McGovern in Texas. And I asked her, how would you convince that younger version of yourself to vote for you now? And it isn't an easy question to answer, because her strength is the fact that she works like a dog. She knows an awful lot. She knows the world in a way that Bernie doesn't. And those are tough things to get across to younger people.
So is this the beginning of a game changer? I mean, when we talk about momentum, you know, this is the kind of momentum that we saw for Obama in 2008, reaching voters that nobody had reached before.
But the difference is that Barack Obama was a moderate. Hillary was to his left on health care, if you remember. I think that in this case, we'll see what happens. I mean, I've seen this happen once in my lifetime, and that was George McGovern. And as a result, the Democratic Party was ruined for 20 years.
But the difference is there, just to make note, the country was a much more conservative country in the 60s. Today, the country is a more progressive country on social issues, and I think that's where the cue for the Democratic Party is. They need to move further to the left, not start at the middle and negotiate to the left, because that's never going to happen.
I think social issues are not what this campaign is going to be about, because the Republicans are moving to the left on things like gay marriage, scurrying to the left. Okay. I think that what we have to be thinking about is, how do you counteract a nativist, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim movement? And just over there, Donald Trump's having a rally tonight, and there are going to be thousands of people there.
Do you think that's where the Republican nomination is going to end up?
Well, I think that, I don't know that Trump can win it, because he has about a third of their constituents, you know, in his corner. But the rest of the party is going to have to consolidate against that, and I think that whoever gets the nomination is going to move in that direction toward a kind of nativist, anti-immigrant, know-nothing, which is what the movement has historically been called here, position. And
while we're in the predictions game, do we think we're going to see Michael Bloomberg entering the race? He talked about the level of discourse being so disappointing that he wanted to come in.
There's only one thing that Michael Bloomberg would do if he came into this race. If it were a Trump versus Bernie sort of race, which he was saying, he would elect Donald Trump president. And that would truly be tragic.
I don't know about that. I think that he would elect Bernie Sanders, because nothing is worse than having two billionaires in a race talking about income inequality.
Naomi Collins, Joe Klein, thank you both very much.
Good point.
Indeed.
Hey, I won one.
Now, in about 6 hours' time, the polls will open here, and it's Dixville Notch and Millsfield. Now, they are tiny, tiny places. There's about 35 voters in all there, but they will be the first ones to go to the polls, and those results will probably be in by the time you wake up tomorrow morning.
Emily, thank you very much. Now, David.